Hi, this is Glenn Guy from the Travel Photography Guru. Here's the second of a series of presentations I've got on my upcoming photography tour to China in January 2012. Today's presentation will deal with the Temple of Heaven. Situated in Beijing, it's a wonderful place for architectural photography, both in colour and in black and white. It's a very large precinct, wonderful place to photograph in, and I would be expecting to spend 3 or 4 hours at that location. There are opportunities for people photography, either formal portraits or candids. This is one of the larger structures in the Temple of Heaven, and the reason I made the photograph is because this is a very popular location. Beijing, of course, being the capital of China, somewhat unavoidable going to a famous tourist location and not having someone appear in your photograph. So my thinking was, well, I would just wait a few moments until I got the right person appearing in this picture. And I think the black shape, based on the clothing they're wearing, is quite a graphic element, as is the red cap they're wearing, because clearly that's a nice contrast in colour with the cool blue sky, and also the red ties in with the surrounding building that I'm using really as a frame within a frame. Yellow is a very important colour in Chinese culture, signifying happiness. This is a large bell tower, and I loved the shapes and the fact that the light and shadow are actually echoing the shapes and enhancing them. Doorways have a presence to them, and doorways in Chinese temples and palaces are often quite grand, and often, certainly in the palaces, studded, because that's giving an impression of power, I suppose, and the fact that they're well protected, that they're fortresses. So what do we photograph at the Temple of Heaven? Well, we mentioned the issues with lots and lots of people often visiting the sites. Of course, if you can get there very early or very late in the day, you tend to miss a lot of the local tourists. But my approach is just to make sure you're allowing enough time. You're not having to run around and try to get the shots you want. And that also gives you time just to sit back, watch the crowds, let them pass through, and then make a shot that's less cluttered, if that's your want. And if you're not able to do that, well, incorporate people into the architecture, into the photograph, and use the people to enhance that sense of scale. And that really gives you the idea of how large the buildings are. That works very well. And in a place like this, even the details are big. So we'll see some examples of that with upcoming images. Given that there are a lot of people there are lots of opportunities for portraiture. So this is a shot with a wide angle lens at a low angle, up nice and close, to really accentuate the grandeur of that door and the symbolism of the lion on the door knocker. As I say, the details are even big. So that's a very large disc mounted on a wall, and it's a lovely symbol, and the shapes are beautiful in it. The outside circle, and then of course the inner circle. So that repetition of shape is nice. From a colour point of view, it's what we'd call monochromatic colour. The image is basically one colour, different shades of that colour. I love the doorways so much that I made a few photographs of them. I just offset the doors by having the detail in the middle. And of course you notice the connection, because the detail was yellow, as are the studs on the door. Just for variety, black and white. Now, there are a number of doors in the complex, so these are not all the same exact location. Detail in quite cool light, so you can see that even the yellowish colour on the woodwork and the warm pinkish colour in the background, it's actually got some cold blue light mixed into it because it's in the shade. And it's a matter of whether you go with that or whether you correct it. I've left a little bit of the coolness in the image, just to, I guess, emphasise the sense of quiet. Now, very difficult lighting at this time of day, bright light creating very dark shadows, and you can see some spots of flare in the image, which could be retouched, but frankly I just don't feel the need to, because it's kind of telling a story from a photographer's point of view, I suppose, that I'm shooting into the light. So it's an instructional image. What I did was I decided to use the architecture in a way to, like a river or a road, to allow the viewer to travel through the image, in this case from the bottom right corner across to the left side and zigzagging all the way through towards the back of the image. And that technique really helps give a sense of greater three-dimensional space, depth in the picture. Because I was shooting into the light, any colour was really diminished, so it didn't have a lot of colour and therefore suited rendering in black and white. And what there is also are the strong shapes and textures of the brickwork and tiling, so that was going to be more evident in the black and white rendition as well. It's always good, if you have enough time in a location, to take your own approach to photography and get the safety shots, but then just try to experiment a little bit and have a bit of fun. And they're the shots that are going to excite both your peers on the tour and of course your friends and family back home. These colours, red, yellow, blue and green, are dominant in the architecture at this location. Do a bit of reading beforehand and understand the symbolism of those colours to that culture. As an example, white is very symbolic in Western cultures, signifying purity. Of course, that's why it's chosen as the colour for wedding dresses and christening gowns. But white, I suppose we could refer to as the colour of death in China, because it's actually white that people traditionally wear to funerals, not black. So as well as not wanting to create sort of fashion faux pas, it's just handy to have an understanding when you go to a place like China and you see particularly red and yellow everywhere. Well, what does it mean? Can you help use those colours to tell a story? These splashes of colour I felt were really handy because I was there in winter. It was a pretty cold day when I visited the Temple of Heaven, and those little splashes of colour did provide a nice contrast with the sort of melancholy monochrome of winter. Mono meaning one, chrome meaning colour. So often on a winter's day, the light is pretty much of one colour. And again, those little splashes of colour in the architecture or in people's clothing can just help lift the scene a little bit. So here's a detail of one of the structures, and you can see those dominant colours in there. For variety, I went for black and white, particularly if the scene didn't have much inherent colour in it, blue sky to deal with. So the dark silhouettes of the trees contrast nicely with the very light sky, and this image is full of texture, so well suited to black and white. I've put a warmish colour on the image later on, so it's a monochromatic image, and I guess it's what people would often refer to as an antique look. Back to the colour, so I'm making the images look more colourful by throwing a monochromatic black and white in between. Always good to try to tell stories through your photography, and you can have that in mind when you're wandering around with the camera, or later on when you do your edit and you're reducing your best shots down to a nice tight cohesive structure, a presentation. This is when the storytelling can actually really come into play as part of the editing process. I'm always looking for iconic images, whether natural or man-made, and for fleeting moments. Red and yellow being dominant colours again in that culture, and the coolness of the outdoor light we see in the reflection. And I waited for a moment until we had some local tourists walk into that reflection, just to add I guess, a slight sort of surrealism to the image. Another large detail, this motif on a wall, and these lovely ladies. I hope I'm this sprightly and fit at that age. Back to that sort of wintry look, using the pathway to add a sense of three-dimensional space. very late in the day actually, so the light is very, very low. It's, from memory, it's about a 1/10 of a second, handheld, contrasting the guy sitting down in dark clothes with a figure in a light jacket walking in from the background. You know, a small thing, but I just suggest that the longer you can get someone to look at a picture, the more you win as a photographer. So having little elements like that actually introduces a potential story to the picture. You know, the relationship between those two figures in that environment. I had a bit of fun with this one because when I shot it, the light wasn't very attractive, and I've just gone to town on the processing. So it's really overly sharp from my point of view, but I just really wanted to have a play and bring up as much texture as I could. And again, I've given it a antique colouring. It's okay to look, from my point of view, to look at a couple of these, but I wouldn't put more than 2 or 3 in any presentation because it's just too hard, I think, to look at too many of these shots. A bit like HDR, when it's super processed, you can have a really mysterious sort of Harry Potter look to the image, but if all your photos look like that, it actually kind of starts to work against you and they become a bit mundane. And you know, the image should be about I think the traditional aesthetics of beauty, rather than just the process, which used to be the darkroom, and now it's of course the computer. So I would actually prefer this photograph. It's got all you need, and if well printed, would stand up quite well as opposed to the previous shot, but each to their own. And of course, have a bit of fun, try a bit of everything. So the tour's in January 2012. It's going to be 10 days, but it could be as much as 12. But I'd just like to say 10 days at this stage, with a maximum of 10 people. Now, the costs are still being worked out, and you know, the dollar's a bit volatile at the moment, so I've got to be a little bit careful there, but I will make it absolutely as affordable as I can. The price you pay will include accommodation, all meals, internal flights in the country, there'll be several, as well as local transport costs to and from the airport, to and from various locations we visit. There'll be some photography theory sessions along the way, certainly practical photography sessions relating to each location. So the night before, or maybe just after breakfast, quick sharp session, giving an indication of where we're going that day and what the challenges and opportunities would be, and how to approach that location. So the information's fresh in your mind. I will be doing some image processing, and I've been teaching for a long time, so I believe I have a good way to teach to a group in a way that keeps everyone happy, from novice up to a more experienced practitioner. There will be image feedback sessions. I absolutely understand the need and power of image feedback, and it's wonderful for the participant to get feedback from other members of the group, just as it is to get the feedback from the tutor. Airfares to and from China are excluded, of course, because people will be coming from all different parts of the world. Your own drinks and snacks are excluded from the costs, so you'll have to pay for those. And any accommodation associated with staying in China prior or after the tour. The Temple of Heaven is a fantastic place, very peaceful, in a very big, busy city. So it's a lovely place to wander around for half a day and, you know, really photograph a whole variety of subject matter. So you can find me at travelphotographyguru.com, that's my blog, Facebook, and also on Twitter. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I look forward to providing you with another one in a day or two's time. Thanks so much. Bye for now.